Something, you rich? I think this just might be my masterpiece.
You know something, spoiler man? I think this just might be Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece. This is Spoilers. Hello, everyone. I do think that last scene in the movie is basically Quentin talking to himself. But let's jump into Spoilers Podcast. You're here to hear us talk about the movie. A way to jump right into the movie, I think, today is to just make this so the opening question is about the movie. So, Pappy, you're going to go first. And let's say you were signed on as an editor for Inglourious Basterds, right?
Mm-hmm.
What scene would you shorten or lengthen?
Tough question. This is Pappy, recording from Louisville, Colorado tonight. The scene I would shorten or lengthen? I guess I would go with, there's a character named Sergeant Hugo Stieglitz. I would like to see his full-on backstory a little bit. I think it might be to the detriment of the film, but regardless, I would like to see, there's one little scene where he's getting tortured when they're in the tavern. I just want to know a little bit more about him. He seems like a really interesting character.
Yeah, Till Schweiger, I love him. He's a good actor.
I really want to get to our special guest quick here. And Pappy, you invited him on, so I'll let you do the introducing here if you don't mind. But it's Jesse from the Junk Filter podcast.
Hi, guys.
I slid into your DM. Well, it's funny because you're one of my favorite people on film Twitter. You have some of the funniest tweets around. I started listening to your podcast from that. I actually went to your page twice to invite you on Spoilers, but your DMs weren't open. And then you tweeted out, someone invite me on your podcast. And so I jumped on that right away. So I hope I wasn't too intrusive, but we're all very happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It was Kismet. I have my DM set to that you can only DM me if we follow each other, just to keep the abuse from coming in. From some of my more incendiary tweets. But it was Kismet because I sent out a message that I would love to be a guest on someone's podcast at the very moment you were looking around and you found me.
Meant to be.
This is adorable.
But Jesse, I want to extend that same question to you, Jesse. If you were signed on as an editor here, which scene would you shorten or lengthen?
I think I would lengthen the last few minutes of the movie. I know that it's the big chaotic finale with the destruction and the vengeance and then the aftermath, but it felt a little too short considering everything else that had played out. It felt like it resolved itself in the matter of minutes, and I would have liked a little bit more of breathing room on that.
Stevie, I have you up next in my order here that Pappy gave me earlier. It's a little sneak peek of an order that our trivia is going to go in, if people are paying attention to that.
Oh, boy.
But Stevie, you're up next. Where are you recording out of, and which scene would you lengthen or shorten?
This is Stevie recording from Elkhart, Indiana. And if I were to lengthen one scene, especially a sequence, it would be the intro, which is, 1944 France at, what's his name, the French farmer's house.
La Petite.
Yeah, that's like a 21-minute segment and sequence, and that to me is so good. I think that could easily be a movie or at least an hour long. That's the one I would probably lengthen.
Brett, you're up next, and we got a lot of lengthens here. You got a shortening for us, or are you going with lengthen?
I don't know if I'd pick. This is Brett recording out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. God, every scene was so intense. Maybe cut out a little bit of the. God, everything happened for a reason though. In the basement bar scene, maybe I got nothing, man. I thought it was all pretty good. Maybe add the end scene maybe a little bit longer with them mowing people down.
One of the few times to give the question in advance and still slip, sliding away on this one, Brett. I love it. I think what you're right. I mean, this is a well-timed movie. I don't think there's much there to edit. Korey, what about you?
Hi, this is Korey, Kylo Ren memes. I gotta go with lengthen, okay? So, there's a quick thing that happens in this movie, and it's near the end, very famously. Hitler gets blown away with a submachine gun. And one of the cuts to him getting blown away is like this dummy with like this rubber skin just getting shredded. I say just hang on that for like a few more seconds.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty gross out and insane, but like you kind of want to see it, you know, like in the context of this movie. But one other, actually, I'm gonna do the Brett. I got one other, the Bear Jew. I wanted to see more of him, specifically wearing a bear costume, running up and punching random women in the face.
What?
Oh, like the Wicker Man?
Yes, like the Wicker Man. Thank you, Jesse.
Mikey, close us out here.
Oh man, I really think Stevie, Brett, and Korey bring up really good points. I could see more of the intro scene for sure. I think that makes an incredible intro to this movie. It's just so great. And I could definitely agree with Brett that it's already perfect the way it is. It doesn't need any cuts or any edits. And Korey, I do want to see that Hitler getting blasted in the face extendo scene. That'd be pretty cool too. So I'd have to agree with all three of those opinions.
Okay, and this is Josh from Goshen. I'm your host tonight. The reason I'm host is because I won the last movie game we did. So we do trivia at the end of it. At the end of the episode, I kind of mentioned that earlier, and I won the last one, and so I chose Inglourious Basterds. And if I were to edit a scene, I'll do a shortened one, since no one's done a shortened. I wasn't a big fan of the scene with the veterinarian and like Brad Pitt sticking his finger in the actress's leg. I really didn't like it when she's like over-explaining the German way versus the American way of displaying 3 on your hands. I thought it was just like a little too much, maybe. So maybe I would just cut a little bit of that. But the funny thing about that is that if you read the full original script, there is actually a lot from that scene already cut. So it seems like he kind of had that same idea too. But anyway, let's get into the movie. Jesse, you weren't here. We just recorded on Kill Bill recently, and we talked a lot about how the opening scene's tension kind of informs a lot of maybe the way we watch the movie, and we think it's a strength, I guess. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that? And maybe you can start us into this opening scene too.
Yes. I mean, the film is broken up into 5 chapters, and each chapter has some kind of negotiation sequence. And I found it very interesting that the film is constantly ratcheting up tension and releasing it, and then putting you back into this ratcheting of tension. By the end, the catharsis is like a spectacular catharsis because of how your brain's been conditioned.
Even within this opening scene, Tarantino holds off on showing us the family beneath the floorboards, right? Like it would have been very easy to establish them running under the house or hiding under the house, or they see the Nazis coming and then they run under. But he lets the scene build for quite a bit of time before it pans down and shows the family down there.
Yeah, at first I was confused because I thought maybe the farmer's family were the Dreyfus family, pretending to be the Lafitte family. So I did not expect there to be an entire family in the basement when the camera pans down to reveal in the cellar I guess about 5 people.
I think that information is like given at a really good time, right? Because it's already really tense. Just like getting like shaken down by like Nazis, I'm sure is like tense enough. Every time it happens in this movie, people are like really on edge and freaked out. But the fact that they're also harboring Jews is like, I don't know, it's just like the icing on the cake at the moment you get that info.
It's so much of this movie comes down to
language and spoken word in the different languages. But I don't know this actor's name. It's Dennis Menochet. Is that how you would say it? His eyes do so much acting in this scene. He looks so tired of the constant stress, and I think it's one of the best physical performances of the whole movie. He just has this look about him that's sad, but also, like I said, exhausted at the same time.
I read that was a part that was written for Jean Reno, but he turned it down.
Is that the guy from Leon?
Yeah.
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 He's very physically the same, like that big
Looks a lot
Irish
like him.
French guy.
Very much like him.
He's like it was almost like the CGI Irishman effect to make Jean Reno 40-year-old farmer instead of a 65-year-old farmer.
I like his whole routine that they have in case a Nazi squad does show up. Like his whole family like just went into like a certain mode to get ready to host these sick freaks or whatever.
Yeah. Stevie, you called me earlier this afternoon, and you were comparing the busting out of Christoph Waltz's Sherlock Holmes pipe to when Samuel L. Jackson chugs the Sprite in Pulp Fiction. It's kind of just this ominous sign of dominance in a conversation.
I think the first time I ever watched Pulp Fiction was with you, and you had already seen it. I think we were like 13 or 14. And when Samuel chugs that Sprite, I remember looking at you going, they're all going to die, aren't they? Yeah. And sure enough, that happens. And I never saw a trailer for this movie, so I went in very blind. And when I was watching this, the moment, he pulls that thing out, it's like, oh, that's Sprite. I mean, that's 1940 Sprite right there. People are going to die very soon.
Just to give you an idea, in the script, in the opening scene, when he's interrogating this French farmer, the French farmer takes out a pipe and starts smoking it. And at some point, Londa says, hey, can I take out my pipe? And he goes, yes. And he pulls out this big, giant calabash, which is the pipe that Sherlock Holmes smokes. And it's a very funny moment when it happens. And
he drinks milk.
Yeah, and he drinks the farmer's, he's a dairy farmer, so he drinks his milk as opposed to wine. But he has this pipe. And so I wrote that in the script, and then I actually had a couple of more moments where I had Londa take out the pipe and smoke and think. And so it was Londa's pipe. But I started thinking about it more and more as pre-production was going on, and I had dinner with Christoph, and I asked him, I go, let me ask you a question. In the script, it implies that this is definitely Londa's pipe, and he uses it to think. But let me ask you a question. What if Londa doesn't smoke a pipe? He knows the farmer smokes a pipe. And so at a certain point, he brings out this pipe. And what pipe does he bring out? He brings out the Sherlock Holmes pipe. One, you can say it's a sexual thing because my pipe's bigger than yours. All right. And the other thing, you can say, I know you're lying and I got you. I've got the Sherlock Holmes pipe. So maybe he doesn't smoke a pipe at all. It's simply just an interrogation technique to throw the farmer, send him more to hell. And so what do you think, Christoph? He goes, oh, he doesn't smoke a pipe at all. It is simply an act of theater.
Well, Jesse, you mentioned how there's 5 negotiations in this movie. Is tobacco one of the signature things you'll see in those?
Yeah, I believe you're right. I think there is cigarettes involved in every single negotiation. And in the 5th one, it's the cigarette itself that starts the fire.
I wonder if there's something, too, if you watch really closely, to who's lighting their cigarette first and who blows smoke where. I bet there's secret Tarantino meanings to all that stuff.
The Christoph Waltz performance, at the time I saw the movie, I didn't know who he was. And I started going, okay, this is going to be good when Waltz, after several minutes of speaking in French, says that we're going to switch into English. After confirming that the family that he suspects are in the house and the farmer's family don't speak English. That was when the white knuckling began for me in that scene.
Yeah, I like how meticulous he is during that whole process. He's very scary.
Nazis known for their meticulousness. I was listening to a Charlie Rose interview with Quentin Tarantino, which is funny because I mentioned that on Kill Bill, and at the time when he was interviewing for Kill Bill, he was talking about the script he was working on, Inglourious Basterds. But he was saying that he was willing to totally scrap the movie if he couldn't find the right Christoph Waltz character, and then he had to search high and low, and it was basically down to the last 4 days before some of the financing came in, and it was like a do or die time. And Brett, we talk about the Oscars a lot. I love this kind of story so much more than the career achievement or makeup Oscar, right? Someone just coming out of nowhere and like having a all-time performance and getting rewarded for it.
When you think of Christoph Waltz, what he did with the, this one, and then a few years later with Django, it mirrors a lot to me what Mahershala Ali did. Just came in with 2 iconic characters in a couple off years, and just had amazing performances, and because of these smaller roles, just become household names. And man, he's so unbelievable in this movie. He literally thinks of everything until the end when he lets, we'll get there, but one little mistake, he could have made a little extra caveat that could have made his life a little better, but he missed it, which he just doesn't miss anything the whole movie. So yeah, it's amazing. It's a lot better than some of the stuff we've seen. I mean, like Gary Oldman's had better performances, but you got to give him one at some point. So
is that caveat that he doesn't anticipate Americans will just give a chewing out instead of like shooting their soldiers for like minor things?
I've been chewed out before.
That, or just put it down in writing, like guarantee that he'll have safe travel and won't be sorry the word, but this would be the word they would use, like unmolested in his travels to America. And he didn't do that. Like, again, maybe it's hard to say the Nazis had a better code of conduct, but maybe he just assumed that someone who was as high ranking as Brad Pitt's character would respect.
Be by the book.
Yeah, but it wasn't. He definitely did not do a bingo on him.
One thing I can say, too, about the Waltz character is I believe that at some point he even says that he got into the Nazi party not for ideological reasons, but for opportunistic reasons, right? He's a sociopath, and in Nazi Germany, a sociopath could do very well for themselves. Like, they could move up the ranks, they could become in a position of power and issuing life and death power. So he's kind of like... of all things that he reminded me of when I was watching the movie was the Denzel character in Training Day.
Yes.
Just has mapped everything out. If this goes wrong, then this gameplay comes into effect. Or the way that Waltz very quickly comes up with an exit strategy for the end of World War II. Like, I don't know whether or not he's such a brilliant thinker that he came up with that on the spot when he realized that we're now in a situation where like Hitler could get blown up. It's like, you know what? I could get out of World War II unscathed if I help set it up, since it's going to happen.
And even
like,
get a house in Nantucket from it. If he plays
but the way that like in Training Day, Denzel has like mapped everything out 3 moves ahead, and suddenly any new obstacle comes up with a solution. And like Waltz in Basterds, Denzel screws up at the end, but for almost the entire movie he's in charge.
He also kind of screws up at the beginning though too, right? Because he lets Shoshana escape, and I mean he pretty much has her at point blank, and he has a whole little regimen with him or whatever. Like, is there a rationale that he lets her escape and he just says au revoir Shoshana, which kind of like rhymes slightly? It's one of my favorite parts of the movie, but like why?
Stevie question, maybe.
The only thing I can really think of, besides for movie plot purposes,
his
is
reputation to let it.
Well, no, Jesse's correct. He is a sociopath. In my opinion, he revels in his nickname as the Jew Hunter. Part of me wants to think that one of the reasons why he let her go is, that's a really far shot, but also he's probably obsessed with the chase and the hunting himself.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think
Definitely.
he's very obsessive with that. And, part of me just thinks, till we meet again. And we fast forward, so many years, from this point on after the massacre, he probably never stopped hunting from then on. So I think he's just obsessed with the chase.
Do you guys think that he recognized her in the restaurant? Because he was making a lot of dairy references, and
I don't think he recognized her, but yeah, he did make a lot of the cream. Yeah, that's a good point, but I never thought he recognized her. But
I took that as Tarantino toying with us. I took that
Definitely.
as this is his MO. This is what he does to people. Like he's done the milk thing to a lot of his victims.
Could this have been the earliest seeds of Landa maybe planning his World War II end plan? Because if all of a sudden he has dirt on the cinema owner who's about to host a huge Nazi party, maybe he can use that information in the future. Like, she's not going anywhere, right? If he pretends that he doesn't know her, she'll feel safer. I don't know.
Before we get too far away from the beginning, I want to give a shout out to Léa Seydoux. I did not know who she was when I first saw the movie, but this time when I watched Bastards again for the first time in 11 years, I was like, hey, one of the daughters is Léa Seydoux. How did Tarantino know to put her in a movie? Because she became a pretty big enough star after that.
The Bond movies, right?
Yeah. And Blue is the Warmest Color,
Mission
which won at
Impossible.
Cannes.
That's interesting.
I've seen scenes.
Me too. I haven't seen the whole movie.
It's funny you mentioned that, though, Jesse, because a couple of weeks ago when we were planning this pod, Stevie texted me on the side, and he was like, I'm really worried about the Bastards pod getting out of control because it's such a huge, sprawling plot. So I was thinking, like, the first thing we could do after talking about the tense open is, Mikey, why don't you run us through the Romeo and Juliet story of this movie? Like, who are the main romantic... ? What is that whole plot about?
Yeah, so it's kind of a one-sided romantic situation we have here. Daniel Bruhl plays, I don't know his rank, but his name is Frederick Zoller. Brett, do you remember his rank?
Brett's boy.
He's a baron.
Low.
Private.
Yeah.
He's like
really?
a private.
Oh, okay. But yeah, he has a bunch of medals now or something. He's like a hero, national hero, because he killed a bunch of men in a town square or something.
He's the Chris Kyle of Nazi Germany.
Oh, my.
Yeah. With a plastic baby in the bird's nest. He's sniping people. And he's like infatuated with Shoshana, and she's like putting up the marquee at her theater, and he's like super interested in the venue and trying to chat her up about like German directors and stuff like that, but she doesn't want any part of it because he's dressed in his Nazi garb, and she obviously has a grudge against the Nazis because her family was murdered. And
But he's a nice Nazi.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I may be a
he's
Nazi,
different.
but I'm not so bad, you know.
he's built different.
I'm not like the others.
I like the kid, Charlie Chaplin, right? He's not. I don't know. It's kind of on the fence though, right? Because I remember the first time seeing this, thinking that there might be hope for him to some extent, because like you see him have like moments of PTSD. He doesn't seem to necessarily always revel in the attention that he gets from killing all those people, but he's not quite chivalrous either. I mean, obviously being a Nazi aside, like she obviously doesn't want any part of him, and he's like, what's your name? And she has to like show him her papers. And you know, if there was any kind of like from romantic relationship or friendship, he wouldn't like insist on seeing her papers, right? So it's still that kind of weird power dynamic between them, which is like, you know, plays out at the end too. He's like, I'm not the kind of guy you say no to. So I don't know, he plays it so well, because there's a certain amount of sympathy I do garner for him, even knowing, you know, where his character goes.
Isn't there a scene where he shoves her or lays hands on her in some way?
I thought that was at the end.
At the
when he's
end,
like-
yeah.
That's towards the end.
He kind of forces himself in that door. That's not that cool, but I don't know. What do you think, Jesse? Do you want to, like, what's the end result of this one-sided romance, like Mikey put it?
I thought that the Daniel Bruhl character was a paragon of sort of male entitlement. The way that he was a nice guy who was in the movies also, and was very charming to Shoshana. But then all of a sudden, when she puts a wall up, he says, you don't talk to anyone like me like that, or whatever. Like, you know, he has this, which is the kind of shit that Harvey Weinstein used to do to people. And that hit differently, because I didn't really make the connection of it in 2009, but now it feels like I don't know whether or not like Tarantino wrote that with Harvey Weinstein in mind, but it plays that way now.
Well, with all that in mind,
me.
Pappy, do you like the end result of seemingly Shoshana shooting him to death and then him rolling over when she finally kind of shows sympathy towards him?
God.
It's brutal. I mean, do I like it? It's hard. It's hard that Shoshana doesn't get to see the fruits of her labor, right? Like, she dies before she even gets to her scene comes up in the reel. So it's really disappointing in terms of like the aesthetics of it. I mean, I like it. I love the red kind of explosion when he does shoot her. It looks really great in the slow motion, but it's hard, man. It's sad too, because Shoshana has no reason to have any sympathy for any Nazi on the face of this earth, right? The Nazis killed her family. Nazis are the reason she lives in fear. Nazis are, why she's having to burn this huge collection of film that she has in order to murder him in this likely suicide mission. And she still has like a little bit of sympathy for this guy for one reason or another, and it doesn't pay off. And I like, though, that Tarantino doesn't really give us any Nazis to root for, right? Like, there's all of the Nazis are kind of, even if they do have this code of war ethics, or however we put it earlier, they're all kind of, they're all evil, essentially, and they all get their comeuppance one way or another. And I do appreciate that, but man, I feel bad for Shosh.
A lot of comeuppance in this movie. Stevie, when's the last time you've seen this much slow motion, though, when these fellers die in the projection room?
Probably Snyder Cut. I was gonna say,
yeah,
it's gotta be every other scene in Snyder Cut. But I mean, Daniel Bruhl's character, Private Solar, seems very on the surface, but it almost makes sense for him to charge and bust open the door and kind of yell at Shoshana like that near the very end. Because you think about it, they kind of allude to it when this guy entered the military or was enlisted, either one. Very shy dude, couldn't talk that great, stumbled over his words. And, he really became loved through killing people. He was a nobody, and through his exploits of killing 160 some odd people, he became a celebrity and loved overnight. He's rubbing elbows with some of the most powerful people in Germany. And so, for him to get mad during that movie, it's almost like kind of a cry saying like, look what I've done. This is my worth. Why don't you love me like everybody else does? So that's how the character kind of came across to me.
This part in Inglourious Basterds I thought was brilliant. The idea of the Romeo and Juliet couple, the fucked up, the Jew and the Nazi. And you have to also think about it this way, that she kills him, but then he's mortally wounded and he kills her. But she kills him while he's on screen in a movie theater where he's going to be alive. I mean, as long as the movie's playing, he's alive. And then she dies, and then she comes on the screen and announces her plan to just destroy the Nazis. So they're both dead, but they're alive in the movie. And the movie is where they're going to actually change the course of history.
I was going to ask you this, Jesse, especially after listening to your Once Upon a Time in Hollywood episode on the Junk Filter podcast. Is Quentin Tarantino the first person to really use the subversion of history as a plot point? Because Brett and I have talked quite a bit before in the past where, we don't really take points, quote unquote, points off of movies if they aren't historically accurate. Yeah, we don't really hold them to that standard. But is this really sort of the first time where a movie's reveling in how not historically accurate it is?
I mean, I'm sure it's happened before. There's an Alex Cox movie actually called Walker, which was made in 1987 with Ed Harris as William Walker, who was like the first quote unquote governor of Nicaragua when it was a U.S. protectorate. All throughout the movie, it keeps introducing anachronisms that are deliberate anachronisms of, like about the 1980s. Like all of a sudden there are cars and people are on their cell phones and stuff like that, even though the movie is firmly set in the 1800s. And it's sort of like it plays around with history. And I don't know whether Tarantino's the first person to do it, but I have to give him credit that he's done it 3 times successfully. Like Inglourious Basterds, I think, was a movie that was ahead of its time in terms of what an audience could accept of what they're being shown. And by now we're used to that kind of like playing around with history. But in 2009, it seemed offensive and horrible, and or people saying that it was not right for the Jews to be portrayed as violent, savage killers, even though their targets were even worse in real life and did it to them.
Eli Roth called it kosher porn, the ending, which I thought was a funny term for it.
I think that does a good job of kind of wrapping up the Shoshana Zoller plot somewhere and all that. Let's rewind, though, because I do want to get to some hardcore World War II stuff. Brett, I know you're a fan of this war. You know a lot about it. Can you be the one to introduce us to the Basterds and kind of what they're all about, even maybe that opening scene with them?
Okay, I'm not a fan of the war. I'm a fan of learning about the history of the war.
I know. Just to clarify.
Big WW2 guy.
Yeah, so the Basterds are a group of people. They're, I don't know, I think they refer to them as like a secret forces, secret service type thing, led by, I don't know, Brad Pitt's character, who's part Indian or whatever he says. So, but he actually wants to get Jewish American soldiers to be part of them. They're just kind of like I don't know, they do more like guerrilla warfare, kind of sneak up on people, and they scalp people and kill them, and they don't really let people go. Maybe one person per group that they kill, they let live, but they mark them. You know, you could hide in plain sight if you were a Nazi, but they don't let them do that because they carve a swastika in their forehead. So, I don't know, it's just a really cool thing. It's surprising because it's not like a huge part of like the first act or 2 acts, but it's really big at the end. So, like someone said earlier, they terrify the Nazis.
It's interesting the way that Tarantino lays out the story of the Basterds, right? Because it starts with Chapter 2, the Inglourious Basterds, and you basically see the regiment or the team forming, and Brad Pitt's like, okay, there's an armada coming, like D-Day is about to happen, sort of like, you know, rallying the troops, getting them excited for like the mission they're about to happen. We never actually see the Basterds being badasses in person, right? Instead it's like the secondhand. Well, it's a secondhand flashback, right? It's told by the guy who's in Hitler's office. So it's like it goes from their intro to the aftermath, right? Or like they've already sort of come to prominence in Europe at this point.
This is the Inglourious Basterds themselves. This group of American soldiers is like probably the biggest reason why I chose the movie. I want to get into more of some of these like characters because I think BJ Novak of The Office is one of these dudes. Like,
you know, I really wish that Tarantino had gotten his first choice to play the Bear Jew, who was Adam Sandler.
I'm the Bear Jew. Skippity-doo.
Skippity-doo.
That would be terrifying, coming out of the tunnel.
He would have fucking owned. Can you imagine Adam Sandler, coming out of the tunnel in an undershirt and just braining a guy?
Just jacked.
Incredibly baggy shorts.
Hawaiian shirt.
You guys were talking about Christoph Waltz's character and describing him as a sociopath. What does that make Lieutenant Aldo Raine? Because he's a pretty sick fuck too, but he is on the heroic side, right? He's killing Nazis.
He's a sadist for sure.
Nah, he's cool.
He's our sociopath.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
It takes a sociopath to beat a sociopath, you know? You know what's funny about Aldo Raine? I love the naming of a lot of these characters in the movie, too. Aldo Raine is sort of a pun on Aldo Ray, the actor who was in a lot of World War II movies. And it's also an allusion to Major Charles Raine from Rolling Thunder. I think I read somewhere that Aldo Raine is not officially, but you're supposed to consider him as like one of Charles Raine's relatives who fought World War II. And in Rolling Thunder, William Devane plays a Vietnam vet who gets returned home from the war and is completely disturbed by the experience and then gets tormented by this gang and goes right off the deep end. And Tarantino named his production company after the movie. And I thought that Brad Pitt's not really trying very hard in this movie, but he's still good. It's still fun.
Pappy, I wanted to toss this to you because you also have Native American heritage. You've talked about it a couple times on the pod, but
This is true.
I think that's a pretty cool thread in this movie that basically the people who win World War II is a small group of Jews and one guy using his Native American strategies, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you gotta love it. I don't want to be that guy. I guess I don't think the movie does a great job of keeping track of the bastards, though. Josh, like, where does Sam Levine go? He just disappears from this movie
you're right.
altogether. And there's like a couple bastards who like are kind of like in and out, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't mean to downplay it earlier, Josh. I said we don't get to see the bastards being badass. Like this, with that the torturing scene in that second chapter that they're recounting and they smash the guy's head in. Do you like Eli Roth's Boston accent in that scene, Josh? I'm curious. Teddy fucking Williams.
It's like debasing when you hear it, isn't it? It just like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. It just takes you out of the movie, but I think that's like what Tarantino wanted, and he does that a lot in his films. There's also times it almost reminds me of just like when he'll flash text on screen and point out a Nazi and like say who it is, right? It's very like on the nose. But yes, I'm not a huge fan of Eli Roth's work in general. I'm not a hater. I just don't watch much of his stuff, but he's not even really like an actor primarily, right? And like there's something about his casting in here that's still perfect, I think.
It's an incredible Ben Affleck impersonation.
I'm saying, man, it should have been Sandler. It would have been great.
Eli Roth has talked about on the QT8 documentary, like his big scene in this movie when he comes out with the baseball bat, and the way he describes it is like pretty funny, and it like speaks to Tarantino's directing style, I guess. Like he was in that little like cave sewer thing, and apparently he was in there just like pumping iron, like getting like pumped and like working himself up mentally, like ready to come out because he wanted to have this scene like down. He wanted to come out with the
What do you think he was ingesting?
NOS energy drinks, probably. Red Line. But he's getting pumped in there. He's in there for a long time. And then Tarantino comes in the cave and says, all right, that's a wrap for today. And he's like all disappointed. And the next day, it's like the same thing. He's like in there getting in his own head, like punching the wall, ready to come out and be a badass. That's it for the day. So like by the time they finally did do it, it was all like planned from Tarantino. Like he wanted him to be like mentally ready. Like he was so like into the scene by the time he got to actually do it. And he was all like, jacked up on Slim Jims and energy drinks or whatever. And I don't know.
Sweet Nos.
Yeah.
Like, what do we criticize? Like, I thought it was like kind of weird sounding, but are we criticizing his accent? I mean, he's from freaking Newton, Massachusetts. I mean, that's 7 miles away from Boston. It's not like it's a bad accent. He may be going overboard a little bit, but
I thought it was over the top, but then I checked in with Massachusetts correspondent Dave Mello, who's from Boston. He's like, no, that's exactly what people sound like. Who am I to judge at that point?
I just figured he was being like a Red Sox announcer, like an old. Yeah, he was definitely going overboard, but I mean, it's not like we can really criticize what he. I mean, he knows what a Boston, Massachusetts accent sounds like, So.
Who said no to the Adam Sandler thing? Was it Sandler's camp or was it?
He was busy making a great movie.
It was a scheduling conflict, yeah.
He wanted it to be a golf club instead of a baseball bat. Because he would come out as Happy Gilmore. But
speaking of that, I wanted Mikey to talk about this. You love practical effects. It's one of our oldest things to pitch to. Mikey for the practical effects info. What did you think about the Bear Jew beating this man with the baseball bat?
Quentin has like a certain style to like all of his deaths in these movies when he uses practical effects, and I find it very off-putting, which means it's working. And it's just like a dummy filled with sacks of blood and it explodes. And it's like his go-to effect, and it's very effective for me. So I always like how he portrays like people getting shot and maimed and stuff. So to me, I find it pretty disgusting and really really effective in like what he's trying to portray, which is like hyper violence. So I think it's good.
You didn't like when all the nuts were getting blown off later?
I mean, that's obviously tough to watch, but it's like the more horrifying thing is like when he gets stabbed through the back of the skull like 5 seconds later. So it's like, I don't know. He does violence in his own way, and it's always very good.
I thought the baseball bat one was like the most realistic death scene to me, and it's definitely hard to watch. I thought it's about exactly what it would look like for what they did, so pretty brutal, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Thought it was hilarious.
I love it that he hits him in the head and he goes down, and there's like 3 or 4 seconds where the Nazi is on the ground, like clearly like brain damaged, and his hands are just up in the air kind of flailing. And Bear Chew, Eli Roth just goes for his like stomach for a couple of hits after that. I don't know, Stevie. I guess I want you to explain like what's the general affect of the Basterds themselves. They're like all standing around this little canyon, kind of like chirping in, laughing.
Well, they're pumped, man. Like, I mean, when they say, we've heard of you, of course, you're Aldo the Apache. Of course, we've heard of Hugo Stiglitz. They're excited. They're like, oh yeah, like our job is working. Like, our names are traveling through the German ranks of everyone, we're letting go to spread word, and people are truly fearing us. And I think they got great pleasure from that one soldier that was just crying on the ground, like when he knew it was going to happen. Probably just praying he was going to be the last one standing. But yeah, pretty much, they're really just trying to get the word out that, they're messing Nazis up.
My pants if I was you. Teddy fucking Williams knocks it out of the park. Fenway Park on his feet for Teddy. Fucking ball game. He went yard on that one onto fucking Lansdowne Street. You. Damn it, Hirschberg.
They're giving back what the Nazis have been giving out. It's like they're gonna scare the shit out of them.
It's so funny that officer or commander or whatever that gets beaten to death with the bat, like they make it seem so dramatic, and he's so honorable as he's sitting there waiting to die, when like he's got to know like immediately afterward those two guys are like shitting their pants and they're going to give up all that information in order to save themselves. He just kind of dies for nothing.
And Hitler hears about all this and he's like pissed. And wasn't this during like the height of the Hitler reacts to meme?
Yeah. I can't believe Stevie had never seen the trailer, because I saw 1,000 times Hitler goes 9999, and it was cut right next to Brad Pitt going, oh yes, 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 yes. And like I saw that 1,000 million times, like before movies and DVDs and stuff.
The cartoonish violence in that sequence, because like it's very graphic and hard to watch at sometimes, and then it's also laughably funny at sometimes too. Like it's like very obviously a dummy that they're like desecrating. But this is the major point of the movie, which is like this movie is an assault on the Nazis, and one of the most effective ways to make fun of a fascist is to laugh at them. So the violence in the movie is cartoonish and funny, and the fact that it looks cheap is part of the joke, because this film has no respect for them.
Do you like that part where Goebbels starts crying after Hitler tells him it's his best film yet? I think that's really making fun of him in like the harshest way maybe Tarantino even knew how. Like, here's a director like like sucking this Hitler's wiener. I don't know. Speaking of amazing cinema, we do a lot of Fast and Furious movies, and that's just some serious film right there.
This is high.
Kylo,
awesome.
Whenever we do those, we always toss you for like the history and like maybe the heist details. So I'm wondering, can you take us into this Austin Powers, Michael Fassbender plot? What is Operation Kino?
All right, Magneto and Goldmember are in a room yucking it up. They're so ridiculously British that it's like, it's funny. Like, it's the exposition of their plan to like go meet up with the Basterds and infiltrate, go behind enemy lines and all that. It's funny to me. And not because they necessarily say things are funny, but their Britishness is funny. Are you guys feeling that too?
Oh yeah.
Who's the third guy?
Bang their head.
It's supposed to be Churchill.
That's just supposed to be
That's my
actually
favorite part of the
Churchill
scene
in
is-
there? Oh my god. Okay.
Just chomping on a cigar in the back, not saying anything. He's like, well, how are they doing?
Now I get it.
It's supposed to be Rod Taylor. He's from the
Yeah.
Birds or something.
Yeah, Rod
apparently.
Taylor was Churchill. That was his last film. He died shortly thereafter. But I read that Tarantino they were pushing Albert Finney on him, but he actually was tied to Rod Taylor because of some weird movie Rod Taylor made a long time ago that Tarantino's not over, the way that, he has that idiosyncratic casting. He just was like, oh, I want Rod Taylor. Like, you turned down Albert Finney? Jesus.
Well,
keep
anyway,
going,
to get
Kylo,
back to what I
please.
was saying. Yeah, so
Sorry, guy.
the Brits had found out about this movie that's going to be playing, and all the high-up Germans are going to be there, all the Nazis. So basically they get Michael Fassbender, who's, I guess, like, I don't know, he's got like a movie podcast or something, so he's got like the cred, They're going to send him in because he knows all about the fucking Kino movies. He's seen all the good shit. And they're going to meet with the German double agent, Bridget von Hammersmark, and basically just infiltrate this film that they're going to show. And the plan is to blow it up, kill everyone inside.
Mike Myers' 2 movie club. This and Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's it?
Wow.
So far.
Peasant.
Stay tuned for the Love Guru.
I didn't think Mike Myers was all that strong in the part, but what do you guys think?
I like pretty much most things what he does, but I think it was supposed to be a little over the top, like Korey said. He's just super British. I think that was the point.
I like the vibe that he brings, but I don't know if he's great.
Yeah, I like the vibes, but I don't think it's like Travolta in Pulp Fiction about to like get a renaissance in his career because of it or anything.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
But he's not even trying to. It's literally
every once in a while, like one of Tarantino's casting choices is distracting.
Yeah, he's a little immersion breaking.
I knew what he was trying to do, but I didn't know if it was done all that well.
I was into it. I mean, that scene is pure exposition, and I think
for sure.
just adding something that kind of like catches your interest outside of just like what they're saying is cool to me. Like seeing Michael Myers, like I said, not Michael Myers, that's a different guy. Mike Myers, yuck it up. I'm into it.
Korey, did you like when he said no one will bang their head to Bohemian Rhapsody? That was the best part of the movie.
Oh, that's so fucking cringe, dude.
his career is so strange. It's like literally the past decade has just been past decade plus Inglourious Basterds, Shrek sequels, and Bohemian Rhapsody with some Saturday Night Live appearances sprinkled in there. It's strange.
Maybe he's just enjoying life now.
I hope he is.
Academy Award-winning Bohemian Rhapsody and
Indeed.
Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds, Pappy. Put some respect on his name.
What's
That's
a better edited film? Academy Award-winning Bohemian Rhapsody for editing, or Inglourious Basterds, edited by the legendary Sally Menke? This was her last movie.
Hi, Sally.
She's dead. This is the last movie.
She's passed away.
Pap, I do want you to continue the stream on. This whole thing with Mike Myers leads to fighting in a basement.
Yeah, and again, I think this is like a little thing, but Tarantino supposedly had this giant, novel that he had been working on since after Jackie Brown, and I don't know to what extent he would have fleshed out the details, but we really just go from that scene with Churchill, with Mike Myers, to the basement scene next. It totally jumps forward. I guess they're sort of in a, I don't know, like a safe house or some sort of like abandoned building across the street from where they're eventually going to meet up with the actress Bridget von Hammersmark. But man, Fassbender's great in this too. And I don't want to steal Brett's thunder because I know Fassbender's your boy, but this is like one of his coming out things too, right? Like he wasn't Fassbender then.
This was his breakout role, I would say.
Do you like him in this? Like I said, I know he's your boy, but I know that the first time you tried to watch it, this is about when it got too tense for you.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. Yeah, I stopped watching because I didn't want. I thought that they were going to kill that Wilhelm guy, and For a second there, I thought it was super hilarious. I'm like, oh my God, he's the only one that's gonna live. I definitely did not expect all hell to break loose like that. Yeah, I do like him. It's rare to actually hear him talk that British, like old-timey British, because he doesn't usually have that accent, but yeah.
I want to get to all the heads popping off in a second, but Jesse, this kind of fits in with the interrogation motive, right? We got some cigarettes smoked, we got some kings drank before he raps on the gates of hell or something. We got these little barbs traded back and forth. How does this rank in the interrogations for you in this film?
This is a really great one. My favorite interrogation in the movie, though, like the one where I was actually like nerve-wracked, was the third one, the strudel one.
Yeah. We kind of skipped over that.
No, I just wanted to jump ahead to say that like that's the only one that doesn't end in death. And that is the one where my nerves were jangling throughout, because I didn't know at this point. I was kind of expecting that the movie would do anything. So I didn't know what was going to happen. And it's such a great moment when it doesn't happen. It's actually quite, it's like the only breath you're allowed to take in the movie. And the fourth scene, though, is brilliant, the way that it just stretches out. It's like, how long is that scene? 20 minutes or something? In the basement?
Yeah, like how long do they have their pistols pointed at each other's wieners? It's a while. Seems like a long time, too. Tension.
And all this like padding too, like explaining the rules of the game as well. You know, like there's just so much information,
so much tension too.
And I have to admit that like one of the things that I liked about the explanation in the scene with the veterinarian's office is because I did not know what gave them away. It, like the movie says it was a hand gesture, but I figured that the guy was figuring it out, but I didn't understand what exactly triggered him to realize that these guys were the bad guys as far as they're concerned. That was a detail that I didn't quite catch, and that dialogue helped me understand it.
That was Josh's gripe. Josh, explain. Did you know that about German culture? How they reference
the
number 3 on their hand?
Well, now everyone knows.
Yeah, I guess maybe the first time I watched this, you're right. That's a fair criticism of my criticism. But I still feel like that could have been displayed on screen maybe a slightly different way. I digress, though. Stevie, the thing that I am obsessed with in my brain and breaking down is like the actual fight scene itself. And it takes place in like the blink of an eye. But yeah, what do you think about this fight scene, Stevie?
Well, I love it because Quentin does a great job of prepping you for it, especially during Lieutenant Aldo Raine's, introduction and speech in the beginning. He says he's going to get a debit of 100 scalps, and the camera zooms in on him real strong when he goes, "Or you will die trying." And it kind of clicked to me the first time I watched this that people are going to die really quickly or soon, when they go into this basement, because nothing can ever go right. Ever. And I'm with Jesse. When I first watched this, I had no clue what gave them away. And, the kind of fun that Quentin has playing with his audiences about rewatching a movie is right when you enter in the bar, the first thing the camera really shows is the bartender pouring 3 shots of whiskey. I think that's a little fun tidbit for things to come. But I think the real kind of part where hell is about to break loose is when Michael Fassbender pretty much says, "I hope you don't care if I go out speaking to kings. Like, I know I'm going to die, he's going to die, they're going to die." And it's rapid. It probably takes, a grand total of 15 seconds, and nearly everyone is dead.
It's Reservoir Dogs ending on crack, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
I don't know how many times you guys rewatched this scene over the years or even today while prepping for this pod, but could we try as a group to kind of break down the ordering of events in here? Because it is tough.
Now, about this pickle we find ourselves in. It would appear there's only one thing left for you to do.
And what would that be?
Stiglitz.
Say auf Wiedersehen to your Nazi boss.
like first the three guys start all shooting each other in the nuts, right?
Stiglitz is going ham.
What does he say, Stevie? He says something about your Nazi balls or something.
Yeah, say goodbye to your Nazi balls. I think he dropped some other effort in there, maybe.
Yeah. The bartender just joins in on the fun just because he doesn't have to, but he does.
Another day at the bar.
Jesse, you got any tidbits in here? Like what? Anything that happens in this breakneck fight scene? Like who shoots who?
Well, it's just so it's everything except the impact and action has been removed from the scene. Like you just see just a flurry of violence. Like it's going too quickly for you to be able to catch up, which I think is probably the experience of violence.
I like that.
Like if you were in that room and all of a sudden this huge violence broke out, it would feel like that to you.
You know what's so interesting thing about this scene too? I think this is the first time I've ever seen a female Nazi soldier on screen in any media.
Yeah, same.
Because
you're forgetting Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS.
I am not familiar with. I'll add it to my letterbox.
Oh God!
Now.
There's a whole series of movies about this with this Eurotrash movies called Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. It was very controversial in the 70s. She was a babe and she was running a camp or something, and she was like a haughty Nazi.
Well, the next time I have a young person tell me they want to watch Elsa on TV, I'll know exactly what to show them.
Exactly.
But she's not inconsequential, though, because I think she kills most of the people, right, from behind, or at least a couple of the bastards she's shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, she pulls a gun. She's shooting down multiple folks. Eventually, Wilhelm... Wilhelm is the last one remaining with a gun, and he kind of mows down the remaining survivors, which includes like the bartender's daughter, which is actually pretty sad. But
so horrible.
I think that like I like this idea of like these German soldiers out having a drink, seemingly with a lot of humanity, very relatable, and like they're thrust into this time period where they're also like human killing warriors, and their instincts, even this drunk, Wilhelm is like stupidly drunk, talking back to his superiors and, lingering too long and just being a general like dumbass. But when like violence hits, even though it's like too fast for my eyes, Wilhelm is still like just mowing people down. It's kind of impressive. I like that part of this movie.
It was very surprising. I thought that the introduction of the Fassbender character was because he's going to be in the rest of the movie.
Same.
And then suddenly he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
He has like less than 30 minutes of like time that he's in the movie, and substantially less that he's on screen. Probably only like 5 or 6 minutes of being on screen.
I love seeing him though. For the short amount of time we get him, I love Fassbender. I think the big moment is when that Wilhelm dude is like drunkenly trying to like talk to them at their table and like talk to the celebrity Bridget von Hammersmark.
Yeah, and she's too nice.
And he just like basically says like, "Get the fuck out of here," in a very Nazi, like, professional military way. I love that moment.
I also love the moment, too, where they're playing the game as the officers, and Tarantino not so subtly points out how fucking racist, like, the original King Kong reads, too, where it's like it can only be one of two things.
Yeah. That was obviously some editorializing in his dialogue, right? Like, he wanted to work in that theory into a screenplay.
And we know he does that from time to time.
I was thinking about that. That would have been like a huge movie at the time, right? Like, I mean, it's a huge movie now, but like that was like one of the biggest movies of the 30s, right? So like around that time, it would have really been in like the public like consciousness.
And I was going to try to make a version of that game with the cars on the head for trivia at the end of the episode, but I couldn't really figure out a way to do that through Skype. Sorry, guys.
We'd have to turn video on for that. And this scene also, what's so great about it is that Tarantino has a real understanding of how much more Europeans know than Americans and Canadians. Like, there's stuff that like we would watch and not understand, like the Three Fingers, the German style of ordering drinks or whatever. But there's a whole other part of the world in Germany and in England where during that scene they would all gasp, because he just gave himself away. Like, people who understand social graces over there would totally understand it. it's so interesting how sometimes a big mainstream movie can be understood in one part of the world and not quite understood in another.
There is a great detail, though, that Diane Kruger, who plays Bridget von Hammersmark, like, you can see it in her face the second Fassbender gives him away. Her demeanor totally changes. The way her eye line totally changes. She's like starts looking down. Is clearly very nervous. It's a great subtle thing that you catch on a rewatch when you realize what's just happened there.
Yeah, but I did not get it the first time I saw it. I did not get it.
There's so many times in this movie where I'm thinking, does this character consider maybe just standing up and walking out of this room right this very instant? Like, is that a possibility for you? You know, if this is a track meet, Fassbender's been holding the baton, running for a while, passes it off to Diane Kruger. We kind of follow her with the Basterds now a little bit into the cinema. Her and Brad Pitt decide to go ahead and go through with the plan, even though...
Terrible plan?
I guess like one of the guys was German-born, or both of them were German-born, so they had like legit German speakers ready to go. Those two guys got killed. Now we're dealing with the dregs.
Yeah. Well, I speak most Italian, so I'll be your escort. Donovan speaks second most, so he'll be your Italian cameraman. Omar third most, so he'll be Donnie's assistant.
I don't speak Italian.
Like I said, third best. Just keep your fucking mouth shut.
Buongiorno.
Yeah.
But the other joke is that he pronounces his name better than the other guys, even though he doesn't speak Italian. Because Waltz only asks him like one other time to repeat it.
Yeah, and he says bravo, like, you're doing better than these guys. It's a very meta moment, I feel like. We're back to the movie theater. We've kind of been here already in this podcast in the projector room, but can you give us like a really bird's eye perspective on what happens here with the Basterds and this theater full of Nazis?
It's just a great bit of tension because, before the bar scene, everybody's going, full of confidence. Yeah, they're all going to go in there and they're going to kill Nazis. It's going to be great. And I think Tarantino does a fantastic job of melding two movies, which are The Dirty Dozen and the 1978 Inglourious Basterds, which is nothing like this movie, but very similar outcomes between the two movies. And I think it's great that, we get introduced to Hans Landa in the first scene, then we hit the Basterds, and we run a collision course for these two people, to finally meet. And it's just a fun game that Landa's playing with them of like, I know who you are, and I'm going to drag this out as much as possible.
Brett, you characterized it as a dumb plan, which is funny because that's literally exactly what Quentin Tarantino was saying too. That like this is such a stupid plan. I feel like they're shooting their shot though, right? Like they're trying to end World War II. I mean, they're doing the best with what they have.
There's also a bigger cosmic joke too, because like there's two actual plans to kill Hitler all happening at the same time that neither of the others know.
Yeah, but one's a good plan.
It's like a goal and an assist.
Like we said, Brett, third best.
Is it? Brett, the original plan includes having Stieglitz go in there. That's not necessarily like the best.
No, I couldn't believe they had Stieglitz in the bar. I mean, he was in the newspaper.
Yeah.
I know.
He killed like 13.
Front page of the German propaganda newspaper, and he's there.
That might have been how the guy figured out that it was them. It might not have been the hand gesture. It would have been like Hugo Stiglitz sitting at the table.
I see him, his face.
Finally turned pro.
And he literally is sitting at the same table as the guy who tortured him.
You're right. Oh my God.
Who is the third guy? So Eli Roth, Brad Pitt, and Bridget von Hammersmark. And
It's Italian Culkin, brother.
Yeah.
He looks so much like a Culkin to me. Like an Italian Jewish version.
Italian Culkin. I like that.
He looks like the guy from that show you watch, Stevie.
Succession.
Yeah,
Roman.
Yeah. Rory.
Omar Doom.
Yeah, Omar Doom, yep.
They kind of get split up, and I'll take this scene really quick. Basically, the easiest way to explain it is that Hans Landa strangles Bridget von Hammersmark, and I feel like that's Quentin Tarantino getting his kicks in this movie. It's a pretty famous note that I think it's his hands actually strangling her because Christoph Waltz like didn't want to do that shit.
Is it his hands putting the shoe on too?
Probably.
He's like, I need my eye behind the lens too at the same time. Yeah.
When everyone was mad at Tarantino a couple of years ago, like when people were upset about Tarantino and the whole Uma Thurman accident on Kill Bill, like they brought up that scene in Inglourious Basterds as an example of his hostility towards women.
He's a method. I
don't know if that's fair, but
I reject that hypothesis.
Yeah. Well, people felt the same way about the Hateful Eight, right? When what's her name?
Jennifer Jason Leigh
gets hung. Like there's a big backlash against that, and she's a bad guy within the context of that movie. And
Hanged.
Bridget von Hammersmark's anything but in the context of this movie.
Well, the fact is that Tarantino's playing with tropes of exploitation movies. He's not endorsing or like hoping that you'll be inspired by this shit. This is the kind of stuff that you expect to see in these movies. And he's playing around with these tropes. I don't think it's fair to like read any more into it than that.
I mean, you're describing Twitter, in my opinion. So, I mean, that's what people complain about. I think it's dumb personally, but she's not a very good actress when it comes to being under stress. Is that supposed to be like a little under the table joke? Or is it just that she's just uncomfortable around the Major and Hans Landa? I mean, she does not do very well under pressure.
I was going to say that she seems a little over her head regarding the whole secret agent thing.
She does not bounce back very well.
She reaches into that bag and feels her shoe and like freezes and is like, "Huh?"
Yeah. She's like what they would call a front runner, like in sports or whatever. Like you're really, when things are going really well, you're awesome, but when it's down, you're terrible. Like, she's really good with the drunk people when she's comfortable, but when the Gestapo, the Geppetto Major come in, and Hans Landa, whoever brought up the shoe thing, like, she just does not have a very good poker face.
That's just a long-winded way of saying that she's arrogant. We get it. What were we going to say, Jesse?
Oh, my God.
And it's also, I mean, it's just another example of the sadism of the Waltz character. Like, when he knows that he's got somebody in their crosshairs, he'll drag it out. He'll make them sweat. And he does that every time. And that's what's so effective about the strudel scene is because you think he's onto her, but then you realize that that's just the shit he does to everyone. In this movie, we're only seeing the successful examples.
He is definitely sadistic, though. Brett, sorry about that. You're my buddy. I want to toss to you. I feel like this is an honor. Tell me about this fire in the theater and how just great and cathartic it is, this end scene. Like, just give us the best details.
Okay, so I was a little confused about what their plan was, Shoshana and her boyfriend guy, whatever. But, was she going to go down with the thing? Or was she going to get out? Sorry, I'm asking a question before I get into it.
So projector-wise,
was she planning on dying?
I think she was thinking there would be a way out the back, but I think, like Pappy said earlier, I think it was him. She knew it was also pretty suicidal going through with this. But no, I'm talking more about like Eli Roth and whatever his name is, his secondary buddy.
Yeah, so he just gets up. They show that they have the dynamite strapped to their legs, and I don't know why Eli Roth got up. Maybe just was really uncomfortable and he hadn't seen Brad Pitt or whatever. But then he goes up and sees. This is kind of like Looney Tunes-ish to me. Like he goes up and he just smirks, like he gets a big old grin, like he's got the next 3 steps planned out, and he's pumped about it. And as you find out later, they know that the only hard part is going to be the very, very beginning, which is where the odds are stacked against them. They have these like single-shot little handguns. That, I mean, if they can't do that part, then the rest of it's done and they're going to be dead. But so then he goes and I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. Gets the other guy who's hard to get a hold of. I don't know if it's because he's like into the movie or whatever. I don't know if that's just a little throwaway joke or not. But then he's saying "scusi," which is like the funniest Italian word.
Pardon.
True.
Scusi.
We've seen Euro Trip.
Euro Trip, yeah, Miss Guzzi. So yeah, then he gets them up there, and then they're both just like super geeked out about what's gonna happen, and did they change into server outfits, or did they already kind of had that on? They just got some drinks.
They changed.
Did they? Okay. And they have these little one-shot guns, which I've actually never seen before, and they like kind of strap them on the hand, which is pretty cool. And the plan is, I'm gonna go up and shoot this guy. And what does he say? You have 30 feet to cover, in about 2 seconds, and it goes off. And the best part about all this is, all these gunshots that are going off in real life, nobody can hear it because everyone's got like this huge boner for this movie, which is which, if you think about it, I know we're all movie guys. You had to think about how terrible of a movie that had to have been, right? It's literally just him shooting people over and over again. I mean,
I know.
Which I think is funny, just because Goebbels is like, oh my God, Hitler loves it. I'm the best. I'm, whatever. But
dude, it's a moving picture. They're probably just amazed at seeing anything on a screen.
That's true. Back then it was amazing.
Jesse was talking about this earlier, but making fun of Nazis. I think one of the best jokes there is QT shows Hitler's face like close up, laughing, just chuckling, and it's like
a little kid.
It's the Wilhelm scream he's laughing at, and it's like the cheesiest B movie shite.
Stevie, how much would you hate it if Hitler was like eating popcorn, and it was like
Lil Kev?
Stevie can't stand like people eating in slow mo or whatever.
And it just like zooms in on his mouth, and all you can see is teeth and like kernels in the back of his tongue.
I didn't think
nightmare.
I didn't think I could hate Hitler anymore, but now I do.
Like Denethor?
That would have struck a nerve with me. Yeah, the way Denethor eats tomatoes, it's terrifying.
He's got a little kernel in his mustache. Chilling.
It's funny because Hitler's like laughing at like the violence the way I'm laughing at Tarantino's violence.
Yeah, for sure.
True.
Well, it's this is the cartoon of this movie. Like Hitler's cackling away in his seat is the kind of shit that you'd see in like World War II sort of anti-Hitler propaganda movies, like a cartoony version. And importantly, when those guys are moving through the seats to get out of the aisle, they're like, pardon me, excuse me, like Bugs Bunny in that cartoon where Bugs Bunny's in the movie theater. Like the destruction is cartoonish, and like there are all these little hints, cartoony hints of what's to come.
Pappy.
Even when you introduce Hitler, who's such a famous evil figure, he's just like doing what I've seen this scene before. I thought it was like a joke, like when he's like 999, like he's just throwing a temper tantrum.
Pappy.
Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, it's cool. I love that. You talked about Paul Thomas Anderson when we did Boogie Nights. Quentin Tarantino's like dig on that movie was that the movie within the movie wasn't as good as it should be. How do you rate Quentin's movie within a movie here?
I mean, I don't know.
Did he follow his own advice?
I don't think that Quentin Tarantino thinks very much of Adolf Hitler's opinion on movies, right? Whereas in Boogie Nights, it was, what's the character's name?
Dirk Diggler?
No, Dirk Diggler's like father figure in the movie.
Jack Horner.
Like, he knows film, right? That's like the whole point, is that he is a film lover. He's passionate about film. He would know the difference between a good and a bad movie. Hitler just like shit films, man. Hitler's into Too Fast, Too Furious. He's getting off on that kind of stuff.
Well, Eli Roth directed that. Eli Roth directed the footage for the film within a film. It's not actually Tarantino.
Huh.
And so Eli Roth and his brother, I think, put together enough footage for about 5 minutes of just a sniper shooting away at his targets. So it does have a slightly different imprimatur, but I also thought it was very funny because it is like watching YouTube videos of like accidents or something like that. Like it was this really crass portrayal of like German culture that they're all gathered together to watch this movie of a guy just killing people, and that's all that's happening.
It's probably Eli Roth's best film.
But it's as good as it has to be, It's just this piece of shit propaganda movie that is just, it's just crass. It's just so funny that this is a high culture moment for Germany during the war.
You know something, Kylo? I think this just might be Eli Roth's masterpiece.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there with Cabin Fever.
I really do love, though, more than the film within the film, I like seeing the mechanics of how a projection booth would have worked in the 40s, right? Even like when she's like gluing the film together and how she has to flip the switch when the X comes on and everything. Like I've never been a projectionist or anything, but I think it's fascinating to see sort of the inner workings of what's going on back there.
Pappy, I don't know if you know this, but Quentin didn't go to film school. He went to films.
Yeah,
right.
I've heard.
I think someone might have told Quentin, like, hey, I don't know if you've ever heard this fun fact about nitrate film, but it's extremely flammable. And he got it in his head, and he built a whole movie around that one fact.
You know what's funny is that Tarantino put the actress Melanie Laurent through her paces. Like, she had to audition a few times for the movie, and once she got the movie, Tarantino put her to work apparently at the New Beverly to learn projection. Like, so she was required to put together the trailers and the cartoons before the movie. So she had to learn how to edit and splice film and then run it on a projector.
So maybe when I saw Ninja Turtles there, she was working the projection.
Maybe.
There's a good chance.
It's just so funny. So because she's pretty convincing working away, running the projector, like, you don't question that she doesn't know how to do it.
Quick Melanie Laurent appreciation moment. She's great.
Oh yeah.
In this movie. I'm surprised this movie hasn't been memed more, because she has so many reactions to things, especially when her eyes get wide, that I think would be very gifable, very memeable.
Her apathy towards anything that Daniel Bruhl says is like awesome.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. She reminded me a lot of Isabelle Huppert, except a younger version. Just like this insouciance that you get from like French women. Like, she was, a lot of eyeball bulging, just kind of like, what did you say? Kind of like trying to maintain composure, but not impressed. Like that total French attitude is great.
Two movie club.
For what else?
Enemy. I don't remember what for.
It's funny you use the word.
She's having sex with him I don't know how I knew that. But
Brett's got it queued up.
Brett has definitely not seen Enemy. Way too many spiders for Brett in that movie. But it's funny that you mentioned that she maintains her composure, because I guess the original script, she was going to be this like badass, violent heroine, where she was going to be like sniping Nazis and killing Nazis and sneaking up on Nazis and killing them. And then Tarantino does Kill Bill. He said, well, I basically gave all that violence to the bride, and now this character is much more like Jackie Brown, right? Where her superpower is being able to stay cool under pressure, like be able to manage the situation, those sort of skills, which I think this film's much better for it, having her in that lane.
One other thing that I was thinking about in that 5th chapter was just another level of, like, I had so much respect for Christoph Waltz for being able to be such a convincing actor in 3 different languages, and then he starts talking in Italian too.
Yeah, he was like Superman.
It's not really fair. I don't like thinking about that too much, actually. Thanks. Stevie, it wasn't until after I picked Inglourious Basterds that I found out this was your favorite Quentin Tarantino movie of all time, and that QT is probably your favorite director of all time. I would love you to do us the honors of kind of taking us through this last fallout of the plot. We've already had our climax at the theater. So what are the last couple little scenes here to finish out the movie, and why is this Quentin's masterpiece?
Do you want me to finish the theater or go head straight to Aldo?
I think we all know that Hitler got his face just caved in and everything burned, and like no one survived
by about 75 bullets. Yeah.
Can I ask one quick logic flaw question about this movie though?
Yep.
At the beginning, they say that they're going to speak in English because they don't want the family downstairs, because they don't speak English, to understand what they're talking about. But at the end of the movie, when she's her movie gets spliced into the war movie and she tells them that they're all going to die, it's in English.
So how much time passed from the farm massacre?
4 years.
Only 3 or 4 years. I don't know whether or not she would have been able to master the English language in such a short time, or whether that's a fantasia that, you know, we the audience hear it in English, but it actually was in German. I'm just
maybe
confused.
she knew a little English because she's the only one that escaped. Maybe she started moving before everyone else.
Maybe, but I would toss it to the spoiler man. How much Spanish did you guys learn at Concord High School? Like for me, it was very little. That's 4 years.
Yeah. What is how do you calculate 0% mastery of a language?
I think it was to instill the fear in the Germans, as the way the Germans instilled fear in her, you know, all those years ago. Because how many German soldiers speak English? So I think it's a fun little reversal of her being able to speak English to them.
Ooh.
And not all of them know English, which would be terrifying to them.
That
they have no
is
clue
brilliant.
what's going on.
Okay.
Man, that's good, Stevie.
Maybe she kind of knows
That's really good, Stevie.
English from like the movies too. You know,
Yeah.
been working there for a while.
That is, if that's what he was up to, I'm even more impressed. That's brilliant.
Okay, Stevie.
It just works on that level. And, you know, I enjoy seeing Nazis get blown up, especially like Hitler and Goebbels. And I think, you know, I was bummed that Omar and Eli didn't make it out. But I think they kind of had the thought in their heads they were going down anyway. So that part kind of bummed me out. But, theater blows up. Place is on fire. Everybody pretty much dies. I imagine everyone in that theater died. Did they ever show if Marcel made it out?
He had to.
No, but I gotta think he did, right?
I hope
I
he
feel
made
like
it
he
out.
did.
But this is where the movie jumps to, you know, the great discussion between Lieutenant Aldo Raine and Colonel Hans Landa. And it goes far different because you're used to seeing both these men in power, especially like Aldo Raine and the Basterds, and pretty much all the Basterds are gone. You kind of have to think in your head, you know, how is Aldo going to get the one up on Landa because he's such a despicable villain. And the way Quentin Tarantino went about it, I think, was pretty genius.
Brett, what was that oversight you were talking about earlier that you think Hans had?
No, I said it. I mean, maybe I might be reading in it too much, but, like, he's a guy who literally thought of everything the whole time, but, like, he didn't have any stipulations of they're not supposed to be touched or whatever, and, I mean, he's been interviewing survivors the whole movie about people who get carved with a swastika in their head, and he didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too, Brad, is like, why wouldn't he just shoot him in the face as soon as he hands himself up? Like, why I don't understand, like, why would he be off the hook too? We don't care. We just ended World War II. You're just one more guy to check off the list, and it'd be easier to just kill you than give you all of that stuff you asked for.
Because getting to live is sometimes worse than being just put out of your misery, you know? Like he wanted him to suffer by coming back to America and being immediately stigmatized. And the other thing about Landa is, like, everything that he's doing is supposedly by the books, and he's taking advantage of America's diplomacy and their, you know, like, the rules of engagement. And he's not counting on Brad Pitt to just fuck him over the way that this guy is trying to fuck everybody else over.
Yep.
I'm just going to say it, though. Brett, we make fun of you for using the word arrogant a lot, but I mean,
Yeah, I've done it like twice. But go ahead.
Nate, having the last line of your movie have Brad Pitt look right in the calendar and say, "This is my masterpiece." Like, come on, that's a little arrogant, right? Like,
I wouldn't know anything about that.
So is the whole thing that I think Jesse was talking about earlier, that he's, like, taking history into his own hands. Like, I think he had a lot of good points that he was ahead of his time, but I think there's a certain ego that, like, let him do that. I heard a quote where he's basically like, this is how World War II actually could have ended if characters I created were actually involved, or something like that. Like, basically, if I was God, World War II would have been better.
That's arrogant a little bit.
Well, yeah, and Mark Wahlberg could have stopped 9/11 if he was on the plane. But I mean, that doesn't make it true. But I mean, that's inherently different. Like the choices he's making in the stories. I'm saying the auteur of this film ends it with saying, "This is my masterpiece." It does rub me the wrong way. If I'm being honest, it kind of bothers me a wee little bit.
And we all know his masterpiece is the rewrites he did for It's Pat. Come on.
That's a perfect time joke, Kylo. Let's throw it to final thoughts. This is a segment where anyone is free to toss out anything they want that we may have skipped over. To Stevie's point to me a couple of weeks ago, we probably will have to skip a lot, but what are some big ones you guys still have? I know some of you have some notes still.
I have a quick one. So I think Christoph Waltz is such an amazing actor that if he actually turned out to be a Nazi, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's your note? That's it. That's the note.
That's it.
Could be a Nazi? Question mark?
I have 3 quick things. One's actually a note. I think if you're going pound for pound, like obviously the best performance is Hans Landa and everything like that, but I personally thought the best pound for pound performance was the Major from the Gestapo. He made my skin crawl whenever he was on screen, and I think he made the most of, what is he on screen, maybe 2 or 3 times? He's the guy who gets shot in the balls if anybody knows. Yeah, I mean, like, I thought he was so good, and he's got like a pleasant-ish face, but like just is contorted in arrogance and sorry, that's my go-to word.
Ooh, there it is.
But I get made fun of for saying women are arrogant, so this guy's the guy. That's just my opinion on that. And I have 2 quick questions. Jesse, have you seen the masterpiece Ilsa, Harem Keeper of the Oil Sheiks? That's the acclaimed follow-up to the SS one.
I do believe these movies are partly Canadian as well. I think the Harem Keeper of the Oil Sheiks is Canadian.
This just sounds like that movie couldn't be made with this title right now.
There's
nowadays,
There's 3 of these movies, I believe.
Yeah, one. I saw another one. It's a different name. Like, okay. And my last question, Stevie. It's not a Stevie question. It's just a question for Stevie. Who likes milk more, Hans Landa or you and your in-laws?
Well, it's such a tough thing because, like, the way Hans Landa chugs and enjoys that milk is the way I chug and enjoy my milk. The biggest difference is Hans Landa isn't running for a bathroom immediately after he does so. So, I mean, there's a mutual love there. It's just he can go through life normally drinking milk.
He's got
where
that
I have to
direct line straight from the cows, though.
I have to really plan out my milk drinking like ahead of time.
Stevie,
it's a sad
let's
thing.
be fair. He sticks his cigarette butt into most of the cream and doesn't really chow down on it. He knows his limitations, man. We could take a note.
What a waste of food, though. It looks so delicious.
I know, it looked delicious.
Oh, my gosh.
That's all I got.
It looked like Remy and Linguini prepared that thing. It looked amazing.
Fucking Nazi.
Yeah, the strudel looks like one of the best all-time movie foods on screen. It looks so tasty.
Josh, I have a question for you.
Let's do it.
You know that Lieutenant Aldo Raine is a direct descendant of Jim Bridger, but like, did you love how like southern and folksy he was when they're surrounding the Nazis, like during like, you know, pretty much their first scene surrounding, you know, Warner and the other 2 guys? I think one of my favorite lines of the entire movie is when he's like pointing to the map and he goes, "I don't know if you know this or not, but we're in the Nazi killing business, and cousin, business is a booming." Like, I was like, do you think Quentin's writing is like really? I think Quentin's writing is great throughout the entire movie. I think it's like his dialogue is really good in this scene particularly.
I love it when he also like references his family's like moonshine business at one point, and there's like a lesson in there that he's like, everyone knows this moonshine lesson.
You know where I'm from?
Yeah, where is that exactly?
Maynardville, Tennessee. I done my share of bootlegging. Up there, if you engage in what the federal government calls illegal activity, but what we call just a man trying to make a living for his family selling a little moonshine liquor. It behooves oneself to keep his wits. Long story short, we hear a story too good to be true. It ain't.
And then I think one of the most like memorable lines from this movie is literally just Brad Pitt saying "Buongiorno," and like his southernness just bleeds through his Italian suit so hard.
Ein sehr talentierter Kameramann, Antonio Margheriti, und Antonio's Kameraassistent Dominique De Cocco. Signori, questo è un vecchio amico mio, Colonnello Hans Landa della SS.
Buongiorno.
His jaw is so like
protrudes out.
Yeah, it's like a Popeye. It looks like freaking Popeye.
He's doing that little like tobacco nose. What is it called? Snuff or something. This whole movie.
Snuff, yeah. He looks like Billy Bob Thornton in Sling Blade. I mean, that's like
Brad.
what he's doing. Like I like the way you talk with his mouth all jacked up, but it works for him.
Brett's getting ready for subjective trivia coming up.
And I didn't mean to make fun of a handicapped person on that movie. You guys know what I meant.
You're good, Brett.
I loved World War II.
It's usually on a quote like that from Brett that we go into our yes or no's. Our yes or no segment, Jesse and audience who may be just listening to our podcast for the first time, is each host will give a yes or no binary rating for this movie. It'll go something like this. Hello, I'm Josh from Goshen. I give this movie a yes. That's why I picked it. I freaking love this movie. It might just be Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece. It is so egotistical that he says that, but his movies are just like chock full of that kind of stuff. So if you don't like a director like being meta every once in a while, you probably won't like QT's films all that much, but I don't know. Love this movie. Huge yes. Let's keep going in the same order we've been going in all night. Pappy, what do you say?
Yeah, this is Pappy. Definite yes for Inglourious Basterds. I would even say top tier Tarantino. I mean, it's this. I mean, nothing's gonna touch Jackie Brown for me probably ever, but Jackie Brown, this, Pulp Fiction, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I could, I was telling Stevie too. You could say any Tarantino movie is your favorite Tarantino movie, and I wouldn't be that surprised coming from anybody. It's like, oh yeah, I could see how that could be someone's favorite. But I love the story. I love the way this is edited. I love the cathartic nature of the tension and the release that we talked about. I love Brad Pitt's chin, like we talked about. Yeah, just a good time with the movies. A good celebration of, not necessarily a celebration of cinema, but a good celebration of like what Tarantino can bring to the table with the screenplay. Is it his masterpiece? I don't know. That's tough to say. I guess he has one more movie in him. This one last thing too. Watching this 10 movie thing is so stupid. I hope he doesn't stop making movies. He's less than 60 years old. He's born a month after my mom. Just keep making movies. You have at least a couple more masterpieces in you, Tarantino. But this movie, definite hard yes.
Jesse, let's throw you into the mix.
Inglourious Basterds is an absolute yes.
Let's
I like
go.
it now even more. Sorry,
I was just cheering for your yes. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Yeah, we're cheering for you.
Let's go.
I thought you all laughed. So yeah, it's an absolute yes. I think that it's a better movie now in retrospect. I feel like I underrated it when I first saw it. I think that I wasn't quite hip to what it was saying. Like I liked it. It didn't like super resonate with me. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was like this huge masterpiece. And for me, it kind of unlocked and let me relax on some of the sort of hangups I had about Tarantino. And watching Inglourious Basterds again, I thought that like it was a really, really good movie and a really good attempt at sort of establishing this large point that he's been making, which is this idea of like the relationship between history, memory, and cinema, and how movies can actually like give you new things to think about that replace the horrors of what we've actually experienced.
I really like that review a lot, Jesse. Thank you. Stevie, you're up.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it. This is my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, and he is my favorite director. I absolutely love this movie. I think the dialogue is incredible. It is cathartic. You know, the idea of 2.5 hours of Nazis getting their heads blown off is pretty awesome, especially by Jewish soldiers. I think that's pretty awesome too. And, you know, I watched Dirty Dozen and, you know, the 78 Inglourious Basterds this week, preparing for this pod, and this movie is a fantastic meld between the two. Little tidbit here. Do you guys remember Robert Downey's character from Tropic Thunder? Lincoln Osiris? Well, that character is based off Fred Williamson's, like, one of the main characters from 78's Inglourious Basterds. Watch that movie. It's really good. But, I mean, this is my favorite Brad Pitt performance. And, yeah, just absolutely incredible movie. Hard yes.
Brett?
Oh, yeah, I would say it's a hard yes. This is probably one of those movies that I might even I probably enjoy more the second time around because I know what happens. Like, the stress was becoming a lot to me. It's kind of like that scene in Boogie Nights where Josh and I were kind of talking about, we were cringing when he's at the drug dealer's house. That's kind of like that for me. Like, it'll be an easier watch the second time around. I think this will be an easier watch for me and a more enjoyable. I mean, it's not like I didn't enjoy it. Obviously, I thought it was awesome, but taking the surprise out of it will definitely do me good the second time around. Because I actually checked my heartbeat at one point, and
Whoa.
it was like 40 beats higher than it was like 5 minutes earlier on my watch.
What's the big one?
Yeah.
No, not quite there, but yeah. So yeah, it's definitely yes for me.
Yeah, in terms of my accelerated heartbeat, it was chapter 3.
Kylo.
Yes, so this is Korey, Kylo Ren memes. I'm going to give this a hard yes. A lot has been said already, so I can't really add too much, but I mean, obviously it's a well execution of tension, acting, story, merging of stories, and it can be fun, and it's funny. It has a lot of things that I like in a movie. It's just good. That's a bingo. Yes.
Mikey, it's been the longest since you've gotten to pick a movie, so that's why you've been last in all these lists tonight. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that up. Do you give this a yes or a no?
Thanks for that little twist of the knife there, Josh. That was a great little factoid you brought up of my dry streak. But yeah, I think this is a rock hard yes. I love this movie so much. And
yes,
it just does tension so well. And it's just a great example in that first scene. It always makes my palms so sweaty watching that scene. I hadn't watched this movie in so long, and coming back to it and seeing that first scene again really made me so anxious watching it. But it's a great movie. I love it a lot. I love Brad Pitt's performance. It's just over the top and crazy, but it's a great movie. I love it. I can't say a bad thing about any QT movie, so it's a hard yes for me.
That makes it preserved. We haven't asked this question in a long time, but Jesse, what kind of food does that make it? 6 yeses, preserved. What kind of food is that?
I think we know.
What kind of food does that make it?
What kind of food, man?
We always say
if
like
Inglourious Basterds were a food.
Yeah.
If it were a food, I don't know, a rich German pasta sauce or something. I don't know. Is there such a thing?
We gotta go with strudel with cream.
Strudel's the winner here.
Oh, all right.
Could there be like a Scotch or whiskey reference to here? But the strudel's a very good call. Are you all ready for trivia? Jesse, you sticking around for trivia, right? I was hoping you would.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep going in that same order we've been going in all night. But we're going to do a bunch of mini over-unders. So, Pappy, you'll go first, and this will kind of be the just guinea pig. Just doing it with you will kind of explain to everyone else how this works. It's pretty simple here, okay? So, the first question is a script note. How many times in the script is the word Nazi written? So that's the question, and what you can do is you can choose a number, and then Stevie, who goes next, can choose over or under. If you lose that, you're out. Right?
Okay.
So, like,
So the Otis,
Steve,
I pick
Stevie
I
can,
pick a number and then it's up to Stevie.
you can choose which you want to do, okay? But I will say, whoever's picking the number gets help from Jesse. You can collaborate with Jesse if you want.
Oh, okay.
So let's try this out, Pappy. Number of times Nazi is written, and if Stevie beats you, you're out, and if not, like, Stevie can't get out this round, is what I'm trying to say. He's safe no matter what.
So Jesse, my gut instinct was like 250. Do you think that sounds about right?
So we're talking about written in the screenplay or said in the film?
Oh,
written
Nazi count.
written in the screenplay.
What's the question? Okay, so we'll assume that it's in the screenplay. At least 200.
Okay, I'm gonna say at least once per page, right? So 250. I would say 225.
So, Stevie, you're not able to collaborate with Jesse. 255 to get Pappy out. Is it over or under that?
225.
225.
225.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Goddamn Nazis.
Not how many times it was said in this podcast, but in the screenplay.
I'll say under.
The actual number when I pressed Command F was 110.
Official.
This is via IMSDB.
Because there's so many scenes with Nazis.
You don't have to say it as much when you're just showing them.
They don't go around saying, hello, fellow Nazis.
How do you do, fellow Nazis?
Steve Buscemi meme. Okay.
Pappy, you are out. Sorry.
Sorry, dude.
Stevie, you're
It
now
was
up.
a setup by Jesse.
How many on-screen deaths are there? This is according to listofdeaths.fandom.com.
No, you picked the right
The
question
official
because I
source.
researched this one for tonight, so there you go. It's 396, Josh.
Do you want to collaborate with Jesse at all?
Nope.
No, you don't need
It's
my help.
396.
Final answer, Regis.
Okay, so Mikey, Brett, over or under?
No. Push.
There's no push.
That is not the number listofdeaths.fandom.com has.
Not the number I got.
I said specifically it's from this
less.
list.
Under.
The actual number is 533, far more. So Stevie, you're safe, bud.
Let's go.
He gets super wrong and he gets to go ahead. That's cool.
Let's go.
A whole movie theater plus.
Yeah, that's a lot of folks. Okay, Brett.
I was lied to, Josh. I researched that one specifically because you were hosting.
Different sites do have different things. That's why I specifically said the site for that one. So
That's cool.
That's what I've been trying to cite my sources lately.
Screen Rant, you lied to me.
Or
right, what's up?
List of Deaths lied to me. So Eric Clapton, besides for his Eric Clapton act, how many associated acts are there via his wiki? So bands or group he's in.
Associated acts?
Yes. Band. So remember, you can choose a number or you can have Kylo pick a number and then you say higher or lower.
Okay. I'll have Kylo pick it.
Okay, Kylo, since
Jesse?
you're picking the number, you get Jesse's collaboration.
Could you rephrase that or repeat it? I did not understand.
That was a weird question.
I know exactly what you mean because I look at Wikipedia all the time.
Via Wikipedia, Eric Clapton is in this many, quote, associated acts. So they're groups, bands, recording, album outfits that aren't Eric Clapton that he's in, part of.
Yeah.
That he is currently in or has been in his life.
Has ever been.
Ever been
Associated
associated with.
You big Clapton guy, Jesse?
Not really, but I know he's been in a bunch of
That's
bands.
good. What do you think the answer is?
I would say 9.
I'm going to round it up and go with 10.
Over.
Korey, you are safe because the number is 10. And I just think this goes to show Eric Clapton just really can't keep a steady thing going, can't really get along with anyone. He's kind of a dick. Mikey, or Kylo, you are up.
10 associated acts, 0 people of color. Weird how that works out, Eric Clapton.
Interesting.
That's not actually
Please,
true.
Clapton.
That's not true.
Please, Clapton.
Wait, what happened? So Brett is out? I didn't expect that
right?
to happen. Okay. Sorry. Kylo, this is your time to shine here. So I am in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and Maynardville, Tennessee, where Brad Pitt's character is from, is a real place. How many miles do you think I am right now where I sit in the mountains from Maynardville, Tennessee?
Trivia has just become, how far am I from this place?
It's one question of many.
Really testing my knowledge here, Josh.
Remember, you can choose someone. You can
Let's
choose
see.
Mikey to choose the number, right? And you say higher or lower. That didn't work out too well.
Let's
for
give
Brett.
it to Mikey.
Okay, Mikey, you can use Jesse's help here. Pigeon Forge, Tennessee to Maynardville, Tennessee. How many miles?
Just judging by your Wi-Fi connection this podcast, I'm gonna guess you are in the deep woods of wherever the hell you are. I'll say 400 miles.
I'll say more.
All right, Kylo.
I think it's going to be less than that. That seems like a lot.
I think it's going to be less than that.
Jesse, you're not allowed to collaborate with Kylo right now, but yes, that is correct. Kylo, stay alive. Mikey, your question. How many credits does Quentin Tarantino have if you add together his director credits and his writer credits at this moment on IMDb? So that does include, I will say, like the in the works projects that you know are always like at the top of directors' lists.
And television shows?
Yeah, I would only know 10 for directing his movies. I'm sure he's working on the 10th, and 10 for writing his movies, and then the one extra writing for his Pat, so I'll say 21.
Okay, so
that's all I know.
Pappy is out, so it goes back to Stevie.
I'll say higher.
Gotta be way higher.
21 director's credits, 30 writing credits, so it's 51.
Let's go.
Mikey, you're out. Stevie, we're back to you, and we're back up to script notes. How many times is Hitler written in the screenplay? Do you want to choose the number or the higher or lower?
How many times is he written in the screenplay?
Yeah, the word Hitler.
I'll do higher or lower.
Okay, Brett.
Son of a bitch.
Brett, you can work with Jesse and choose a number here. Times Hitler is written in the screenplay.
Oh, is Brett still in?
No, I'm out.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Goes to Kylo. My bad. You know my notes. They're always terrible.
Oh, okay. Well, again, son of a bitch. Jesse, what do you think?
I would say if Nazis was only said 110 times, then Hitler was probably said about 60 times. That would be my ballpark.
Okay. I don't remember hearing Hitler that many times. So that's...
But remember, this is a screenplay, so you also have to add up his lines of dialogue.
Indeed.
Okay, I'll go with your answer. You said 60? Yeah, I'm going to go with that then. You're right, because every time it's written down when he's going to talk or whatever.
Yeah.
Stevie, to stay alive. And actually, if you miss this, game goes to Kylo.
Oh, this is fun. Does Führer count or no?
Just Hitler.
I'll say less.
The word Hitler.
I'll say less.
Stevie, you're sticking alive. It's 41 times.
Whoa.
I like the logic there from Jesse, though. That was a good guess. Let's go. It's a really good guess. Okay, Kylo, your question. Since this movie is all about dead Nazis, how many dead Nazis, so that includes how many German soldiers dead and missing by the end of World War II?
Not enough.
Wait, so I'm still in?
Yeah, that was just Stevie's question.
I thought he was
No,
out.
that was your question, right, Stevie?
Oh, I'm so confused.
So how many Nazis died in World War II?
Yep, and you can choose the number, the higher or lower.
I'll go with the higher or lower because I have no fucking idea.
All right, Stevie, you work with Jesse. So this is Kylo's turn, right? And you're safe no matter what, Stevie.
I'm safe no matter what?
Yes. But work with
Okay,
Jesse or just figure out a number. Dead Nazis.
Didn't Russia suffer the most casualties in World War II?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But that's civilian and military.
Okay, this is just Nazis.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say 200,000. I have no clue.
Kylo, to stay
I'll say
alive.
more.
4.3 million dead. 3.1 dead actually, and 1.2 missing. I like to think 1.2 million found their Shoshanas. Just joking. I hope they all died.
Yeah, it would be. It would be a big number because there was like forced enlistment,
right? And Project Paperclip.
Was it Nazis or German officers? Because weren't not all German officers not Nazis?
No, they're all Nazis. They weren't all SS.
I read it as I interpreted the question as soldiers.
They're all in the Nazi party, so.
Gotcha.
Come on, Stevie.
Dude, you're asking the wrong dude.
But you are up, Stevie. Since we talked about strangulation earlier, how many minutes does it actually take for a person to experience brain death with strangulation? Do you want to choose a number or choose that higher or lower?
I'll do higher or lower.
Okay, Kylo working with Jesse.
What do you think, Jesse? What's your experience? Have you ever strangled
Jesse,
someone?
you a big brain death guy?
No, no. I would guess that it's pretty quick, like in a minute and a half or 2 minutes.
I was thinking longer.
For brain death?
I'm going to go with my gut instinct of 4 minutes.
Stevie, to stay alive, is it higher or lower than 4 minutes?
Yo, Max, change that beat, yo. You got another one?
Well, what if I think... Okay, can I phrase this
Run
answer?
me through your thought process here, yeah. This is for the win, so yeah.
Okay, my thought process is... my process was 3 to 6 minutes, but then Kylo said 4, and now I'm terrified.
If you beat me, you'll find out.
Can it be like 4 minutes and higher?
That would be choosing higher.
Okay, yeah, I'll say higher.
So it's so funny you answer that because the answer is 4 to 5 minutes. So my answer is 4.5 minutes. Like technically, that's what I was looking for. So you do win that. Korey was talking about strangulation here. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that question. It's kind of gross. It's about the Boston Strangler. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that.
Oh.
Boston Strangler murdered X many people.
The Scranton Strangler.
Okay, so we talked about Tarantino's credits earlier. Let's talk about, how do you pronounce his name? Goebbels, the propaganda guy from Nazis. Goebbels. Yeah.
Goebbels.
So how many producer credits
Gobbles.
does Gobble have? Kylo,
How many, what credits?
how many producer credits does he have?
Producing
And you can
credits.
choose the number, the higher or lower. What do you want to do here?
All right, we got a movie question. Oh, I can't use Jesse.
If
Shit.
No, you can if you want to go the number route, you can use Jesse.
All right, Jesse, work with me. I'm going to choose a number.
Producer credits for Goebbels.
Jesse, you a big Goebbels guy?
For movies that he produced through UFA, which was the German film studio that I think was under his control for a while.
Wait.
I would say maybe 30.
I want to just put this caveat. This is when I type in IMDb his name, and he's listed.
He's on IMDb?
Yes, and he has this many film producer credits via IMDb.
Okay, so we're not counting the studio he ran. We're counting his name on the movie credits, kind of.
So it might be more than that, you're saying, right?
I don't know. If we're just counting producer credits for him, I would bet it would be maybe 25.
I'll go with 25. I'm good with that.
That's a guess.
Stevie, you know what to do. Higher or lower?
Oh, higher or lower? Oh, I'm picking higher or lower than 25?
Yeah, so this is to knock out Kylo.
25 seems high. That seems like Bruckheimer numbers. I'll say lower.
I'm double checking this right now. You're looking at it right now too. What's it say?
Yeah.
Back me up on this one, Brett. 2.
What?
4 writing credits.
Amateur status.
Recount.
Credits.
Burning Hearts and
Amateur
Der
status.
Fuhrer. So,
Wow, I thought he was more productive than that, so that's good news.
One of them wasn't even credited.
I love that we can finish this pod making fun of Goebbels just a little bit more. That makes me really happy.
Such a crybaby.
I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Spoiler Man to read our reads, and then we'll come back to Stevie choosing the next movie. Is that okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Special thank you to our patrons. Matt Troll.
At ease here, Cox. Drink.
Brother Brian.
If you offered me a scotch and plain water, I could drink a scotch and plain water.
Druid King.
That a boy, Lieutenant. Make it yourself like a good chap, will you?
Nick.
The bars and the glare.
The Meg.
Something for yourself, sir?
David.
Whiskey, straight. No junk in it.
Nurse Stacy.
And I want my scalps.
If you'd like to request an episode, hear your name read by Spoiler Man, or even just help us make podcasts, please check us out on patreon.com/spoilerspodcast.
Good to be back with you all. Thanks for sticking around to the very end of the episode. Before Stevie picks the next film we will review, Pappy, great news. We have another iTunes review. Would you be so kind as to read that for us?
This is from Dan Brancan. Who has a better story than Dan Brancan? 5 stars. The subject. I drink your Corona. Dom Day Lewis. This is the body. Best ad-lib one-liner I've heard yet. Had me dying, I almost crashed on a road trip. Well, drive carefully, Dan Brancan. You don't want to be Dan Brancan the Broken over there. Worth it. These guys are the most genuine, hilarious dudes in the podcast game right now. Their conversations always feel like I'm there. Would kill to be a part of their podcast one day, but I wouldn't start my own because all I do is listen to these guys anyways. Keep up the good work. We'll be subscribing on Patreon soon. We'll be subscribing on Patreon soon. Well, Dan Brancan, a little guy named Kylo Ren Memes, a.k.a. Korey, once started a podcast after he listened to us, and look at him now. We podcast with him all the time. So listen.
He's on the podcast.
If you start a podcast, Dan Brancan, I promise, one of us will come on it, and 2, you can come on our podcast for sure. And if you have any questions on things that we've learned the hard way, feel free to slide into our DMs in any of the ways Spoiler Man just told us. But that's a really nice...
We can tell you how to fail.
Yeah.
It is very nice. We're sorry to Dom DeLuise's family for the pronunciation of his name as Dom DeLuise. So we're sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Dom DeLuise, not Dom DeLuise. But yeah. Great review.
No, Dom DeLuise.
Super nice review,
Thank you, Dan.
and we'd love to have more Apple iTunes reviews. Actually, one of my questions, if we got to it, was how many ratings do we have? But I'll save that trivia question for a later podcast. Stevie?
Quick note on that, though. We did just lose our 5-star overall rating on iTunes. We were 5 stars for 5 years. We're down to 4.8, boys. So if you could smash that 5-star button, at least get us to a 4. We're a 4.9 man for sure, at least.
That's
least.
probably where we should be. That's probably about right. Stevie, what's the next thing coming down the pipe for us?
As far as movie to pick for next time?
What you gonna do, buddy?
Okay, yeah. I'm excited. So, we're not going to be in the Americas. We're going to go over to Indonesia. This is one of my favorite action films of all time. It's absolutely incredible. Trent Edwards, I think, should direct every action movie that the director for Mad Max Fury Road isn't. And we're going to do The Raid Redemption.
Nice.
Is that a sequel or anything like that?
It's a long story. It's not a sequel. It's the first one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Raid Redemption. Got it.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to Spoilers. I hope this podcast was a little bit cathartic for you. Jesse, before we toss out to Spoiler Man, where can we find you on social media? And again, can you plug your podcast for our listeners?
Absolutely. I am Jesse Hawken on Twitter, and I am also running the Junk Filter Pod podcast. That's our name on Twitter, Junk Filter Pod.
Great podcast. I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much, guys.
More importantly, can you plug our podcast on your stuff?
What the hell?
I will absolutely plug my appearance on your podcast, gentlemen.
Shameless, Brett. Jesus.
Oh, my God.
That's the more importantly.
Arrogant question from Brett.
It's your show. You can be arrogant. Go ahead.
Thanks again to all our Patreon members. We love you, especially. Take it away, Spoiler Man.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Is that the way you say it? That's a bingo.
You just say bingo.
Bingo! How fun!
That was Spoilers.